Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to sift through the sources you send us, the research, the rankings, all that data, and really pull out what you need to know.
And today, we're tackling a comparison that, well, it kind of challenges some common ideas about global power. We're going to compare Spanish citizenship and its passport against the American one, based purely on the facts and the sources.
Right. Our goal is pretty clear. We want to unpack this material, find those hard numbers, those specific rights that suggest, maybe even prove, that the Spanish passport and citizenship are, well, measurably better in some key ways.
Especially looking at global mobility, how easily you can travel, and also the long-term rights you get.
And here's the hook, the surprising thing right off the bat from the global rankings.
Exactly. The U.S. passport, it's been on what the sources call a decade-long slide. It's lost ground.
While Spain's.
Spain's passport is still firmly up there among the world's elite, a top performer. It shows a real shift in, let's say, travel power.
Okay, so let's start there. The most direct comparison, passport power. Visa-free travel. We're looking at the Henley Passport Index, right? Uses data from IATA. How do they stack up?
Well, this is where you really see the difference emerge. Spain is consistently top tier. Depending on the exact report you look at, it's often joint third globally, sometimes second.
Third place. And what does that mean in terms of access?
It means visa-free or visa on arrival access to somewhere between 189 and 194 countries. It varies slightly year to year. Spain's usually right there with Germany, France, Italy, South Korea. The big hitters for mobility.
Okay, so that's the benchmark. Now, the U.S. passport, you mentioned a slide.
Yeah, it's quite a contrast. If you go back, say, to 2014, the U.S. was tied for #1, the gold standard, like you said earlier.
And now?
Now, it's dropped considerably. It usually bounces around between 6th and maybe 9th place.
And the number of countries?
Access is around 183 to 186 destinations visa-free or visa on arrival.
Okay, so the raw number difference isn't enormous. Maybe 5 or 6 countries fewer than Spain at the moment.
Yeah.
But dropping from #1 down to 9th, that feels significant. It suggests something changed.
It's more than just the raw number. It's the trend. The sources highlight this mobility gap nuance. Over the last decade, the U.S. passport has lost more power, more visa-free access relative to others than almost any other country.
Really? Any comparison points?
Get this, according to some analyses cited, it's second only to Venezuela in terms of lost passport power over that period.
Wow. Venezuela, that's a stark comparison.
It is. And the analysts looking at this, they often point towards shifts in foreign policy, like the America First approach. The argument in the sources is that this kind of inward focus has real measurable effects on how other countries view U.S. travelers and grant access. Reciprocity matters.
Okay, reciprocity, that makes sense. So is there data that actually shows the U.S. isn't reciprocating, even if it's still top 10 overall?
Yes, exactly. That's where another index comes in the Henley Openness Index. This is really revealing. While the U.S. passport ranks, maybe 8th or 9th for access it gets, its openness ranking is incredibly low.
How low?
Down around 78th, maybe even 84th in some reports.
78th. And openness measures?
It measures how many other nationalities a country allows in visa-free. For the U.S., that number is only about 45 or 46.
Ah, I see. So the U.S. demands visa-free access from many more countries than it grants visa-free access to.
Precisely. There's a big gap in reciprocity compared to top-ranking countries like Spain, which are much more open. So the data suggests that traveling as a Spanish citizen is fundamentally smoother, less hassle because of this better diplomatic footing and reciprocity.
Okay, point taken on mobility. Spain seems to have a clear edge there based on the trends and the openness factor.
Yeah.
But you said citizenship is more than just the passport stamp. Let's move beyond travel. What about the actual rights that come with Spanish citizenship?
This is arguably where the Spanish advantage becomes even more significant. The absolute key is that Spanish citizenship automatically makes you an EU citizen.
Right. And that's not just symbolic.
Yeah.
That unlocks a whole different level of rights within that huge block.
Exactly. We're talking about the 27 EU member states, plus the EEA countries like Norway, Iceland, Liechtenstein. It's a massive integrated zone.
So what are the core rights? What do you get immediately as a Spanish and therefore EU citizen?
Well, you get fundamental rights like non-discrimination based on nationality. You get political rights, the right to vote and run for office in European Parliament elections, and even in local municipal elections in other EU countries if you live there.
Interesting. Political participation across borders.
Yes, and the right to petition the European Parliament. But the biggest one, the one everyone talked about, is freedom of movement.
The ability to live, work, study anywhere in the EU.
anywhere, freely, legally. You have the right to move, reside, work, and study across the entire EU and EEA under the exact same conditions as a local citizen of that country. No visas, no work permits needed. Ever.
That's huge. For an American, visiting Europe is one thing, but having the legal right to just pick up and move to Paris or Berlin or Rome and start working.
It's a game changer. Think about it. Access to a $17 trillion integrated economy. You can settle, find a job, start a business, retire, all seamlessly. The U.S. passport lets you visit for 90 days. Spanish EU citizenship gives you the lifetime right to live and work across 30 countries.
That's a profound difference in long-term options and security. What about safety nets? You're traveling outside the EU, maybe in a country where Spain doesn't have an embassy and a crisis hits.
Another major benefit of EU citizenship kicks in here: consular protection. If you're a Spanish citizen in a non-EU country and Spain doesn't have an embassy or consulate nearby, you have the legal right to go to the embassy or consulate of any other EU member state.
Wait, seriously? You can just walk into the German embassy, for example, and ask for help.
Yes, and they are legally obligated to assist you under the same conditions as they would assist their own nationals.
So you're not just relying on Spain's diplomatic network. You effectively have 27 backup embassies.
Pretty much. It's like having 27 insurance policies worldwide. If Spain's lines are busy during an evacuation, you can legally get help from France or the Netherlands or whoever's there. This right is actually enshrined in the EU treaties. It's not just a courtesy, it's law.
I remember hearing about this during evacuations like from Sudan recently.
Yeah.
Different EU countries helping each other's citizens get out.
Exactly. It provides a massive coordinated safety net that a single country's passport, even the U.S., just can't match on its own.
So Spanish citizenship isn't just about staying. It's about plugging into this entire European political, legal, economic, and security system.
That's the core takeaway. You gain access supported by the collective weight of the EU.
Okay, this is all painting a very compelling picture for Spanish citizenship. Now let's talk about something really interesting for our listeners, particularly Americans. The possibility of getting these Spanish EU benefits without giving up their U.S. citizenship. Dual nationality. How does that work?
This is a key practical advantage. Spain's general rule, especially for naturalization through residency, is that you're supposed to renounce your previous nationality. They aren't keen on dual citizenship formally.
Supposed to, so there are exceptions.
Yes. The sources indicate that, in practice, the requirement to formally renounce is often not enforced or is effectively waived for certain groups. This includes citizens of Ibero-American countries, the Philippines, Andorra, Portugal, Equatorial Guinea, and, crucially for this discussion, those who acquire Spanish citizenship by descent.
By descent. So if an American qualifies through ancestry, they likely don't have to renounce their U.S. citizenship. They can hold both passports.
That seems to be the common practice, especially for those using the route provided by the Democratic Memory Law, which is often called the Ley de Nietos, or the Grandchildren's Law.
The Ley de Nietos.
Yeah.
Okay, what makes that specific law so attractive for Americans with Spanish roots right now?
It's exceptional for a few reasons. First, it grants citizenship classified as by origin or by option, which is often seen as a stronger, more inherent form than naturalization by residency.
Legally stronger.
In some ways, yes, but the biggest practical advantages are the requirements it waives. Applicants using the Ley de Nietos are explicitly not required to pass the CCSE exam. That's the Spanish Civics and Culture test.
No civics test. That's a big hurdle removed.
And they also don't need to pass the DE-SHE exam, which is the official Spanish language proficiency test.
Wow. No citizenship test and no language test. That's almost unheard of for acquiring European citizenship.
Exactly. Plus, there's no requirement for prior residency in Spain. You can apply from abroad through a Spanish consulate.
So you don't need to live there. You don't need to take the tests. It really streamlines the process for eligible descendants.
Absolutely. It removes huge administrative burdens, time commitment, and potential costs associated with tests and residency. It was designed to address historical situations, particularly for descendants of Spaniards exiled during the Civil War and Franco dictatorship.
Given how much easier it sounds, I imagine the demand must be enormous.
It is. The numbers cited in the sources are staggering. As of March 2024, consular offices had already received over 300,000 applications under this law.
300,000?
Yes, and apparently more than half of those came from just 5 consulates in Argentina and the one in Havana, Cuba. But there's huge interest in the U.S., too. It clearly shows how valuable people perceive the Spanish EU citizenship to be, especially when offered through such an accessible route. It's seen as a powerful backup plan, a hedge.
Okay, let's recap for the listener. We've looked at 3 key areas where the sources suggest Spanish citizenship comes out ahead. 1. Superior global mobility based on rankings, trends, and openness.
2. Those inherent EU rights especially, the freedom to live, work, and study across 30 countries, plus that robust consular protection network.
And 3. For Americans with Spanish ancestry, this unique path, the ley de nietos, allows potentially securing dual citizenship without needing residency or passing tests.
Right. So the bottom line is, Spanish citizenship seems to provide access to a much larger, more integrated geopolitical and economic space than the U.S. passport alone currently does. While the U.S. passport's relative power has maybe dipped a bit and the country's openness score is low, Spanish citizenship opens doors across Europe with strong legal backing.
It really does sound like a powerful geopolitical and economic insurance policy, as you put it earlier.
Which brings us to a final, very important point, something for you to really think about, especially if you might have Spanish ancestry. This specific pathway, the democratic memory law, the ley de nietos, it's not permanent.
There's a deadline.
Yes. It was already extended once because the demand was so overwhelming. But that extension is running out. The current deadline to apply for citizenship under this exceptionally favorable route is October 21st, 2025.
October 2025, that's coming up relatively soon.
It is. So unless there's another extension, which isn't guaranteed, this specific window, the chance to gain Spanish EU citizenship without residency, without tests, potentially keeping your U.S. citizenship, will close.
So the final thought is one of urgency for those who might qualify.
Definitely. If this is something relevant to you, now's the time to investigate. That deadline is real, and it's not that far away.